Hello, students. Thank you for your interest in learning more about cooking. Before we get into cooking and cutting and following recipes and measuring and everything else, the first place we need to start after sanitation and safety is learning the names of tools and the equipment that you would either use at home or if you had a job in a restaurant. What we're going to be learning in this lesson is the names of the tools, what it's called, and the job of the tool, what it's used for. Question: why is it important to know the names and uses for tools and equipment? It's important to make sure that you are using the correct thing for the correct job, or you could get hurt or destroy the food or equipment. The first tool is the most common tool that's used in a kitchen, and they are knives. There are different types of knives. This is called a chef knife. It's used for cutting things that are medium and large in size and cutting them into medium and large pieces. This is a paring knife. It's a small knife. It's used to cut small things, cut them into small pieces, and sometimes even used for peeling things. This is a bread knife. It's used to cut bread. If you notice, it looks like a saw. This is so we don't smash the bread, but just slice through it. This is called a boning knife. It's used to take raw meat or fat off of bones, or carve raw meat or cut it into pieces. This is a meat slicing knife. It's used to slice cooked meat. If you notice, it has these little lines in it, and those lines help prevent the juices from getting pushed out when you push down on the knife. These are tools that we mix or stir things with. This is called a wire whisk. This is used to mix liquid stuff, not solid, but liquid. This is called a chef spoon. It's also used to mix or stir, but it mixes or stirs solid food. This is a rubber spatula. It's used to scrape food from bowls or the sides of things. This is called a spreader. It spreads things like frosting on cakes. This is called a turner. It turns things over or flips them over like a hamburger or pancakes. Sometimes this is also called a spatula. These are called tongs, and they're used to pick things up. In a restaurant kitchen, there's different tongs for different things. Red tongs are for raw meat. Yellow tongs are for raw chicken, and black tongs are for cooked food. This is called a portion scoop, not an ice cream scoop. It's used to scoop the same amounts of food, so everyone gets the same. The same amount of food is called a portion. That's why it's called a portion scoop. This is called a ladle. It picks up and pours liquids. This tool is called a bench scraper. It's used to scrape up food from a cutting board, scrape a tabletop, or even cut dough in a bakery. These are called measuring cups. This is one of the things we use to measure with. If you notice that there's two types, this type measures liquids. If you notice, it has a handle and a spout where you can pour the liquids from. These are used to measure solid foods. So when you're measuring, it's important you use the right tool for the right food. These are called hotel pans, and this is what we use in restaurants to store, hold, and sometimes cook food in. There are different lengths, different sizes, and different heights. These are called strainer pans and colanders. We could wash vegetables in them or drain liquids from things, like when we're draining pasta or for washing vegetables. The colander is normally round and looks like a bowl. A strainer pan is flat, like the hotel pans. We would use these in a restaurant. This is called a stock pot. It's large and has two handles. It's used to cook large amounts of liquids. Some examples are for boiling water to cook pasta in and to cook soups. This is called a saucepan. It's used to cook smaller amounts of liquids and sauces. Sometimes you do small amounts of pasta or small amounts of soups and sauces. This is called a skillet or sometimes a fry pan. It's used to cook smaller amounts of food quickly and on high heat. And it has curved sides so that food can be flipped. A common example is cooking eggs. Notice at the bottom it says, this is also called a fry pan, but it's too short to fry things in. If you fry things in this, it might cause a fire. So we call it a skillet. This is a saute pan. It's used to cook smaller amounts of food. Sometimes it's used to brown meat or chicken. Notice the difference in how these two look. In restaurants, skillets are usually used the most often. And usually in restaurants, the skillet is actually called a saute pan. So if you're in a restaurant or you're reading a recipe at home and it says use a saute pan, the skillet is what you can generally use. This is called a charbroiler. It's also known as a barbecue. It's just like one you might have outside at your house, but this is what we use in a restaurant. We would grill burgers or steak, chicken, or even vegetables. This is also a grill, but it's called a flat grill. This is where we would grill foods on a flat surface. Some things we might cook on this would be pancakes, hash browns, or even grilled cheese. This is called a deep fat fryer. This is what we fry foods in. Some examples are French fries and chicken tenders. This is called a conventional oven or a regular oven. This is the type of oven you probably have at home. It bakes things and roasts them, like bread, cookies, meats and chicken. This is called a convection oven. It's used to bake and roast. This oven has a fan inside of it that moves air around. It cooks things faster than a regular oven. This is the type of oven that is usually found in restaurants. This is a stove. This is what we put pots and pans on. There are two types. One uses electricity and one uses gas. At your house, you might have electric or gas. Usually in a restaurant, there's a gas one though. Now that you've learned the names of tools and equipment in a kitchen, you will be able to understand what items to use when you're reading a recipe or following directions, or what things are called when you're working in a restaurant kitchen. See you next time.